welcome to Trusty Chords, the podcast which aims to celebrate music and those that create it. Fans of the Melbourne music scene were this year very excited to hear about the return of Ceres. For those playing along at home, it's a pretty exciting prospect to have them back in our lives, especially given that they effectively disappeared at the end of 2019, leaving fans to wonder what the future held. After making their debut with I Don't Want to Be Anywhere But Here in 2014, Ceres followed it up in 2016 with Drag It Down on You, and again making magic happen with 2019's We Are a Team. Blending emo, indie rock and alternative vibes with honest emotional songwriting, it's easy to see why Ceres curated such a dedicated fanbase. As I like to say, no one just likes Ceres, they either love them or they've never heard of them. This year, however, Ceres returned with new music. Singles like Want, Need and Humming soon gave way to news of their first album in 5 years, Magic Mountain 1996 to 2022. I'll be honest, as someone who had loved what Ceres had been doing, I was apprehensive that the anticipation caused by such a long wait would see the album ruined by high expectations. The truth, however, is that it's one of the best albums you're going to hear this year. Equally heartfelt and powerful, it's a look inside the heart and mind of vocalist and guitarist Tom Lanyon as he reckons with personal tragedy, long-held trauma, and the thread of love and nostalgia that ties it all together. This week, Tom Lanyon was my guest on the podcast, and I couldn't be happier. We hit it off right away, and it became one of the loosest and most honest chats I've had on this podcast to date. Though I do explain it a little further into the episode, Tom and I had a chat off mic where we discussed our love of Jebediah, inspired by his fondness for my early episode with the band's frontman, Kevin Mitchell. Anyway, Ceres are getting ready to release Magic Mountain 1996 to 2022 next week, so I strongly urge you to check out the record once it's out. But in the meantime, have a listen to our chat, and I'll see you at the end of the episode for some general housekeeping. Tom Lanyon, thank you very much for joining this episode of Trusty Chords podcast.
No worries, Tyler. Thank you for having me.
Now, for those who don't recognise your name, could you give me a quick few words on who you are and why we're chatting today?
My name's Tom Lanyon. I write songs in a band called Ceres, and we've been around for the last, good question, I think 12 years or something. And I think we're talking today because I have a new record coming out called Magic Mountain in brackets 1996 to 2022.
Amazing, and it's good to know that your intel is correct. That is indeed why we're chatting.
I'm glad.
But no, it's very good to chat to you because I've been a big fan of Ceres for quite a while. But I guess before we get to that point, I usually like to sort of start at the start of things. So I like to go back in time to where a love of music first formed. So For you, Tom, do you have a recollection of when music first resonated with you at all?
Yeah, definitely. I remember just in my living room, up in Ferny Creek, which is actually around the Magic Mountain area, because I will get into it later, but I grew up on the mountain in the Dandenongs in Melbourne, in the eastern suburbs, and just always remember there was vinyl collections there in my living room, and we never played them, but I just remember like pulling them out and feeling them and taking them out, and I just almost had no idea what they were, but just that was so intriguing. I always loved the artwork. I just love the physicality of them, all that sort of stuff. And then then just the CD player, and I was just constantly just playing mum's music. Basically, I think we're playing John Farnham and Sade and I don't know what else. And then the older I got, the more into just a real random kind of collection of music, obviously, I guess, as you kind of grow older. And then someone played me, my brother gave me a Blink 182 cassette, and I was like, that's it, I'm done. I don't need anything else in my life. And I'd like listen, because it was cassette, I'd listen to it in my bedroom, and I don't know if you remember, but you'd play the cassette, and then you'd like a song and rewind it, and then play that again. And you'd almost like never get to the end of the record. Yep. And so I remember I just rang that cassette out for, felt like for years, but yeah, no, Blink definitely, I sort of fell in love with music that way.
So you mentioned the likes of, mum's music being like, Sade, Farnsey and all that sort of thing. So I'm assuming that's a lot of the sort of music you were listening to in those days. I mean, were there any other artists that sort of like really earmarked those early years for you? Because I'm starting to think that there's a little bit of a, I don't know, I want to say like a little bit of a Triple M sort of, vibe going on there.
I remember I made a not Triple M, no. I made when I was really young, I made a cassette of, which I'm probably showing my age now, cassettes, but I made a mixtape of, uh, I think it was, I think it was Fox FM maybe, but there was a guy called Rick D,
Oh
and
yeah.
it was Rick D in the weekly top 40. And I just remember that, and that had like Fugees on it, Faithless, uh, shit like Hanson, Mbop. Like, so I was just a 90s kid growing up
Yeah.
with all that stuff. And so that was really eclectic, like all that. So I think Fuji's was When Doves Cry, like the Prince cover. And then Faithless was that Insomnia song. And then, so like it was just an emotional roller coaster of a mixtape, especially for like, I don't know what, a 10-year-old or something. But I just remember that was really good. And my brother wrote on it Tom Mix, and then in brackets, good. And I was like, oh, cool. I got the I got the
Made the
seal of
cut.
approval. That was my first review of any kind of music I was involved in. And I was happy with that too. So yeah, just completely, you know what it's like when it's just really scattershot, and I think you're just finding your way through music and what actually sort of resonates with you. But I remember mum was really into classical music too. And there's a lot of string arrangements on Ceres stuff. And that is wholly because of that.
Yeah, right.
And mum had an ABC compilation CD called Swoon. I think there's like a few of them, and this one was like Swoon 3, and there was a song on there called, I can't remember who it's by, but it's the song's called Asleep, or the piece is called Asleep, the Snow Came Flying. I think I've repressed that right until this moment, Tyler, talking to you. I'm like, holy crap, I can't really remember that. But listen to it, it's incredible piece. And yeah, that to me is like I think when I unlocked that feeling of that music gave me, especially in like melancholia and sadness and stuff, that made me feel good. Um, that was when I was like, oh, this is a cheat code. This is the best thing ever. I can listen to this music and I can feel sad, but it makes me feel good at the same time. And I just thought that was magic. And if I could write music like that for someone else, I mean, this was years and years and years before even thinking about writing music, but just understanding that feeling is more important than sort of like a pop hit. Um, that was an amazing feeling. And then an aggression, like, in an aggressive way, like so like Nirvana Smell Like Teen Spirit, and all that stuff growing up. Nirvana was a big one for us too. Rage Against the Machine, like fire, what a time.
Hmm.
What a musical time. When you think about it, you're like far out. That was like, I just don't feel like that's happening nowadays.
Yeah.
All those formative bands coming out in like kind of like new genres of music as well. It was just like, what a time to be alive, Tyler.
And I should ask as well, because you mentioned like Blink 182 before. So which cassette was that one? Which album of
It was Dude Ranch.
Right,
So
right.
it was pretty early. It was the second record they did. So
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, it would have been 90. I would have been listening to that like 98, I reckon, 99.
Yeah, yeah, because I think it came out in 97 from memory,
Yeah.
because
Yep.
as you can see behind me, all the CDs and everything, there's a good Blink collection there, and I'm
Did.
a bit of a nerd when it comes to it all. But
Yep. Yep.
yeah, I mean, just when you're mentioning all those bands coming out around that time, I mean, it's like if you look at the release dates of a lot of like the classic pop punk albums of 1999,
Mhm.
that was like a 6 week period where it was just absolute insanity, or even I think 91, like in like a 2 month period, like Pearl Jam,
Yep.
Nirvana,
Yep.
Not Rage, but all bands like that all released their formative albums in those times. You just think this is an amazing time to be listening to music. And I guess when you look back on it, you're like, shit, pretty lucky, really.
Yeah.
Pretty lucky to exist in
100%.
that time.
Well, I felt the same way about so I graduated high school in 2003, and that was when that like second wave emo boom was happening. And that, like, a huge inspiration to me was like Dashboard Confessional and bands like that. And that was the start of like such a powerful scene for emo that, like, so before that was the jangly American football stuff, but then came this really popular, and it was like it's looking back, it seems crazy now because it's like they were just the biggest bands of the time. Like everyone in high school listened to like Taking Back Sunday, and it's like what the like, and like even angular bands like Thursday, and just gateway stuff into hardcore and punk, and it was such a weird time. And if you look back at that, 2003, 2004, just record after record after record that are like seminal in that scene right now, still 20 years later. It's just, yeah, it's incredible. I just don't know, like, that's what sucks. It's like, is that a part of getting old when like music doesn't like move you the way it did, but also like it's a self-centered thing to be like, it's not as good as it used to be. But I just don't know if it if there is, like you say, that in succession, just constant, that's like forging new scenes. I'm sure there is, and I'm just like ignorant to it. But I felt like that about Ceres too. We started in 2012, and that was the Poison City era.
Mhm.
So Smith Street Band and Luca Brasi, and in Melbourne especially, there was such a scene, like such a deep, strong scene through Poison City and Hobbity Hoy and labels like that that was so like we didn't. I had no idea about any of that scene before starting the band, and we just like stepped into it. And we're just like, wow, this is like. I just thought that was normal, and now like once that sort of slowly finished, um, uh, like Poison City Weekender and stuff, and then that wrapped up, and there was just like a bit of energy sort of left the scene. It was just like, oh, that was actually something like super special, and we just like happened to be a part of it. It was incredible.
Yeah.
Or so is it that, Tyler, or is it you're just completely self-centered and you think the thing you're in right now is the most incredible thing? I don't know. You tell me.
I mean, I'm no genius on it, but because you're pretty much reading my mind though, because I think the same sort of thing. I mean, we talk about scenes, for example. I mean, I grew up in Adelaide, and I've been in Melbourne for about a decade now. But around the time that I moved was when I was sort of looking at things like the Poison City Weekender and thinking,
Yeah.
why didn't we have things like that in Adelaide? Now we actually do. There's like record stores like Clarity Records who
Yeah.
really
Clarity.
they do amazing work. Shout out to Matt and Laura. But and then when I moved to Melbourne, I was able to sort of catch a little bit of the tail end of that scene and be like, oh, this is really the sort of thing I really want to be involved in. And that's how I discovered bands like Ceres. And I was just thinking, this feels like an amazing time to be alive. And then you think, well, is it really gone or is it just evolved? And it's now, you can still capture that energy just in different forms.
Fully.
And I mean, I don't know if I'm just, rambling a little bit there, but that it is the sort of thing you start thinking of and you just think, is it gone or is it just existing in a different way? And it's up
I
to us
think
to sort of capture that.
I think you're totally right. I think it doesn't. No, I mean, yeah, scenes evolve for sure. I don't think they die. No one's like, oh, there's yeah. I think I totally agree. And like our bands in that scene we were younger then as well. So like you just kind of grow up and grow out of things as well, and then you have other annoying sort of responsibilities and stuff like that. But and musically as well, I think. So then there's that kind of I've sort of struggled with that too. Not struggled, but I can only kind of write one song, one style of song.
Mm.
And I try to write a lot, and there's a lot of songs on this record, Magic Mountain, but of me trying to write a different song. But yeah, I just don't want to be derivative of that time as well. I don't want to like hark back and like lean on it as well. So I think this new record's like the best thing we've ever done. But I guess everyone says that because of a recency bias and a self-centered attitude, I guess.
Exactly. Well, I definitely will touch on it, but after listening to that album, you definitely have a very good, it's a very good reason for feeling like it's one of your best releases
Oh,
to date.
sick.
But I'll be
Yes.
touching on that soon. But
Thank you, man. Thank you.
it's a nice little segue, I guess, to actually sort of talk about when did your love of music transform into you actually playing music? When did you sort of first pick up an instrument?
I think I reckon I picked up an instrument. My friend of mine, Nath, shout out Nath. If we're doing shout outs.
Why
Shout out
not?
Clarity, shout out Nath.
Exactly.
We'll do a
Spread
big
the love.
shout. Yeah. My friend Nath in year 8 had a guitar. And he knew how to play. So this is all dovetailing, obviously, but he knew how to play "Damn It" by Blink-182. And I just thought that was the coolest thing on the planet. So, and I always find that really hard. I still find it hard to play that song.
Right there with you.
And yeah, it's weird, but really quickly it was funny. Like I was like, okay, cool. I want to know how to play a Blink song, and I don't know why I did, but I remember really quickly after that, instantly going, fuck, I don't want to play other people's songs. I want to play my own. Just instantly had this like strong urge to say like, I'm not learning other songs. So Nathan and I got a guitar and we started going to guitar lessons, and it was at the back of this record store called Hans Music Spot, which is like, thinking back then, like that thing's long gone. It was just such a sick music store, and at the back was this little room, and this guy would come out and play it, teaches Monument by Jebediah, and like we would bring in songs. It was the best way to learn guitar because you'd bring in songs and he'd just teach you whatever song you'd want to play. So I can't even remember what I was bringing in like Millencolin songs and Blink songs, Jebediah songs. What else? Probably just a lot of pop punk stuff, but it was a cool way of learning because you were super interested in it. It's not like, hey, here's like a scale and go over and learn that. I was just like, I don't care about that stuff. Like I'm still kind of like musically literate. Like I can't read I don't really know the terminology. Working with like Tom Bromley and Joel Taylor on this new record, it's so funny. They just get really frustrated at me because I can't explain myself. I always use the wrong term. I'm always saying the opposite thing of what I want, but they get it in the end. So maybe I should have listened to more of those lessons.
Oh well.
Yeah, well, too
Water
late
under the
now.
bridge now. You had your chance.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, at least I know how to play Monument.
Exactly.
And so, yeah, quickly after that, I was like, nah, I just want to write my own songs. And I don't know where they came from. And I don't know why. Um, I've, I've always been kind of creative in a sense where I want to be making things. Um, and I'm a designer by trade as well. So I think in me, weirdly as well, the way I sometimes think about music is like design as well. So just the creative process is the same whether I'm like working, doing my job, day job, or thinking about music or the idea of the song, the story around the record that's designed to me, the artwork, like everything is like so overthought almost. Worst thing you can do is sort of just slap it together. I think you just I need a reason for stuff to be as well. So um, that's why I know I'm rambling too, Tyler. Sorry, but
Go ahead. This is what the podcast should basically be called. Trusty chords and rambles.
and rambles. Yeah, yeah, it's a safe space for rambling. I
exactly.
Like
feel free. We've got time.
yeah, we've got 3 hours. So yeah, I mean, every record I've ever done, I'm like, that's probably the last one I'll ever do because I feel like there's no reason to write another one. And then life happens, then you always have a reason. So I'm not saying that anymore. I'd love to write another one, but yeah, there's just this strong desire for it to be authentic and designed in a weird way, like thought. I guess by design, I just mean just for it to be thoughtful. Just have a think about it and meaningful. Just make it mean something. Because I feel like the best art is when it means something and it's not Umbot by Hanson. It's actually Damn It by Blink-182. That's a really bad reference. But if I can go back to my mixtape, my Rick D Week Top 40 mixtape, or maybe better ones, if it's not Umbop, it should be like Fuji's cover of Queen of what's his
Prince.
name of Prince. Thank you.
Yeah.
So yeah, it always needs to mean something. It always needs to be meaningful and very thought out. So that's probably why this one took so long as well, because we just had time. We had too much time on it. Sorry to keep harping back to the record.
No,
but long story short, to answer your question, Nath played guitar and I was like, cool, I'll play that with you too.
Yeah, wow. It's also sort of interesting just how you sort of keep mentioning like Hanson. So I have a weird sort of fondness for Hanson. I mean, on one hand, they make good pop music, but my wife is actually from Oklahoma, which is where Hanson are from, and she's run into the members around Tulsa before, and she was actually discovered a few years ago. She actually saw Hanson probably before they were famous. They were playing at like the Tulsa State Fair or something like that.
No way.
And it's so weird to sort of think, these guys became household names and you were seeing them play like, 11 a.m. in the morning while her mother was talking to their parents and stuff like that.
No way.
It's so strange. But,
that is weird, isn't it? Like,
yeah.
Yeah, I remember seeing like there's like pictures of like Taylor Swift playing to like 2 people at some state fair as well. I mean, everyone starts somewhere, I guess. I remember I did not comparing myself to Hanson or Taylor Swift, but I did a.
Not yet. I mean, you're getting there.
Yeah, I'll get there. Yeah,
see how the new album goes first.
Yeah. So after all that, a friend of mine, after playing, Dude Ranch songs and Monument, and starting to write my own songs, a friend of mine, without my knowing, booked me into like a battle acoustic competition or something in almost like at a bar like across the road from. I was underage, but across the road from the record store where we practiced. But and it was like an originals thing. It was crazy, like no covers, so you just had to sing your own original songs. And I was like so nervous and started writing all this stuff for it. And that was kind of like the first like kickstart of like first time I ever performed live and stuff. And I finished and the guy comes out. I didn't win, and I think I got into like the second round or something. And the guy comes out and goes, "Yeah, I really like your sound, Tom. I really like it. You going for that really kiss chasey sound?" And I was like, "Fuck." I was, and because I was so like so derivatively kiss chasey, speak like strong Australian accent and like an acoustic emo-y tinged pop punk kind of player. But yeah, that was the first time I ever played, I think.
Yeah, I was thinking recently, the first time I ever played a song live, it was a cover of a System of a Down song. And that's the sort of thing which, if you read that on paper, recipe for disaster.
It was a chop suey.
No, it was actually Roulette.
Oh
The,
God.
the sort of the more acousticy one that they
Yeah,
did
yeah,
from their
okay.
third album, and it
Okay.
worked. But
A super deep cut that no one knew.
exactly, playing to a crowd 45K north of Adelaide, not exactly the System of a Down crowd, is what I can say.
Well,
But
neither were whoever I was playing to. That I would just like get this kid out of here.
look at you now. But
I know, yeah. Look at me now.
but I guess as a bit of a segue there, you talk about everyone has to start somewhere, and we're talking about where you're starting. So before Ceres started in 2012, were you playing in other bands before that, or were you just sort of doing your own thing?
Nah, never. Like that's what was that was strange about our like arrival on the scene. I guess was so I was underage when I was in year eight. I started playing guitar. So probably year eight, I was writing songs, bad ones, I assume. But um, so and then we started in 2012. So I think I was like 25 or something. I can't remember how old and the years, but so I was kind of like a late or 26. I think we were late bloomers anyway for starting series. And but before that, the whole time I was writing music, and like I had a MySpace, and I'd put up like I'd write a record, and like with like I wrote one record with the biggest emo title of like it was a Holly Throsby song. No, was it a song or a lyric? There's a lyric, a Holly Throsby lyric. Who I love Holly Throsby, and she it's I think it's the wings of what is it? The wings of birds and the arms of girls. I'm like, oh, that is so sick. So I just ripped it off, made it
Mhm.
an album title, put it on MySpace, and it was just all my friends just going, cool song, you sad dickhead. But I just kept doing that, just kept writing songs, kept putting stuff out, or not even putting stuff out. Like I just use my little Mac, my eMac microphone in the screen, and just like play guitar into it and sing. And so I was just constantly writing music the whole time. It was just like a hobby kind of thing. But there was like I said before, like this innate kind of like drive to do it. Weirdly, like I don't know what it was. Like I was just like I needed to do it almost. So I never dreamt of anyone hearing it outside of my friends or playing a show or wasn't involved, like, even in my mid 20s, wasn't involved in any Melbourne scene ever. Never saw, and it's like never saw a local band in my life. So I'm like the worst person to be going like, hey, tickets on sale now. Like never supported the scene until I was in it. And then, so when we arrived on the scene, like band members had been in bands their whole life. Like they'd been like GY played bass. He was in a like semi-successful band. They toured overseas. Frankie, the drummer, was in like a million pop punk bands. Reese, who started the band, I think he sort of like dabbled in bands, but not a lot. But I was the only one who was just like never done this before in my life. And I think when we arrived on the scene, people were kind of like, who are these dickheads? Because like where they'd come from. Because I love that, like it was like a slow, you got to be bad, you got to be really bad, and you're in the scene, but you're bad, and then you get a bit better, and like everything's super supportive, but you're just a bit shit. And we kind of like felt like we sort of like leapfrogged that just a teensy bit. Not saying we're amazing, but there was just a level where we sort of like came out, and everyone's like, "What's going on with this band? Where have they been?" Because no one knew us.
Yeah, I was telling someone only recently about how I was looking up Bon Jovi's very first gig, and their very first gig. So I'm assuming that all the members had been in other bands beforehand. Bon
Yeah,
Jovi was sort of like their latest band. Their very first gig, supporting ZZ Top at Madison Square Garden in New York City. And you just think that's a hell of a way to like start your career. Like it basically makes you look like that, like daddy's paying
yeah,
the bills and getting you up there using his nepotism and everything.
yeah. Is that what
Um,
happened?
I assume so.
Surely,
I
surely.
mean, I'll say allegedly that's the case. I don't want to, have the wrath of Bon Jovi on this podcast, but otherwise this will be the last episode. But
The Bon Jovi fans are coming out. Well, we had the same. Well, we had a similar thing. Far out, God. Yeah, Tom, stop comparing yourself. So now I've compared myself to Bon Jovi, Taylor Swift, and the Hanson brothers. So
yeah,
we'll just keep a tally going if you don't mind, Tyler.
that's fine. Yeah.
Um, our first ever show was at Northcote Social Club, which is a 300 cap venue, but in the scene was like, so that was how early our sort of scene was. Like that was a big deal playing that venue. We were supporting obviously a band called Creatures of Karma, which I don't no idea how we got it, no idea what the band sounded like, but we kind of sold it out. I knew like all our friends came. We had so many friends, and we were just kind of like, wow, this is incredible, like Northcote Social Club. And then we went back down to like Old Bar and, 100 Cup rooms and stuff for a little bit. But I remember starting that, the first thing was Northcote Social Club. And we're like, wow, we've made it. This is our Madison Square Garden.
Yeah, actually, it's also very sort of full circle sort of thing. So I guess for a bit of clarity to anyone listening, before we had this chat, we were talking about Jebediah, and the very first gig I ever went to in Melbourne when I moved here was Jebediah, Northcote Social Club.
Well,
So,
are we best friends, Tyler?
it seems that way, mate. I don't know. It's really feeling like we're making something a big connection here, but. I guess going back to when Ceres first first formed, what was the plan? Did you guys have dreams of big shows, or was it just a bit of an outlet to make some music that you liked and to be, I guess, a sad dickhead on a grander scale?
Number one, sad dickhead, and we smashed that out of the park. Done. Tick. Just trying to think what the plan was. Zero plan. It was to play shows because because the songwriting thing, it was like I was already doing that. So, but just to myself, and no one else was hearing it, and acoustically and stuff. So it wasn't like, it was definitely people can hear songs, definitely play shows, learn how to be in a band. That was like the early days. Record a record was like huge, or at least an EP. We started with an EP. Probably the plan was actually record music. Like that's one of my favorite things to do. But by far, then like playing music is incredible. But the feeling I get like when it starts to click in a studio, or if I'm just by myself recording music, it's just, I don't know, indescribable. I love it so much. So definitely was to record music together as a band. But outside of that, like as I said, I was so green. I had no idea. I didn't even know what scene I was stepping into. I didn't know like there was a scene. So yeah, it was such humble beginnings, and I think we just wanted to play a show, and I just wanted to record music.
Yeah. So do you remember a point, I guess, where things really started to sort of happen for the band? Because I remember the first album coming out on Hobbledehoy, and then with the second album, you guys were with Cooking Vinyl.
Yeah.
And you sort of seemed to be the talk of the town by that point. So do you sort of remember a point where you were sort of thinking, got a bit of momentum going here, things are looking pretty good?
Definitely between Hobbledehoy and Cooking Vinyl for sure. Like that first record of ours, like Tom from Hobbledehoy is such a legend, and he signed us from the very start. I think we self-released Luck, the EP, and then he put it back out on Hobbledehoy. And then he said, do a record. And we're like, okay, see. So we went and did a record and did I Don't Want to Be An Orbit Here. And that went out, and that went well. And by then the scene was really sort of like Smith Street Band were really picking up. Poison City bands were going crazy. Luca Brasi, there was a lot of that sort of stuff happening. So we were like, oh, cool. We're just playing shows with those. They're becoming friends, and we're playing shows with those guys, and some international bands are coming. And Stu, I mean, this is like harking back as well. Like, it seems like a magical time. And Stu Harvey was on Short Fast Loud on Triple J. And
what a champion Stu is.
Oh God, he's the reason our band's still around by far, because he just keeps putting our shit out. I'm waiting for him to say no, but I don't think he's ever going to. So he played a lot of the first record of ours on the radio. He played the first time he played us on the radio, and the first radio play we ever had was because of Short Fast Loud. And I remember we're all sitting in the car after practice and like listening, just like screaming our asses off because we're just like, can't believe we're on the radio. And his support was really important through all the Hobbledehoy years. And then no bad blood with Tom at all. I love that dude. I love Hobbledehoy. We would still be with them if Stu didn't ask to be on CBA. So we love it. We love Tom, and thanks so much. Shout out to Tom at Hobbledehoy for all his support throughout the years, because he's just been the best. No one else was interested in Ceres, and he took a punt on us. So we love him for that. And then I think Stu maybe could garner like that we were getting popular because of the radio maybe, and he just finger on the pulse and stuff like that. And then he had just started Cooking Vinyl, so Australia anyway, so with Lee Grappetta, and he asked us to make a record for him, and so that was Drag It Down on You. So definitely, I think if I remember, I reckon like once we recorded Drag It Down on You and it started announcing like CVA, and then we were on No Sleep Records in America for a little bit. And I remember Rolling Stone, like, I don't know if that might even you, Tyler, like you guys put us in the magazines, and we're like, fucking hell, like this is crazy. Like something's going on. Then that's when like ambition sort of got away from us. We're like, we're going to be the biggest band in the world. And it sort of didn't pan out like that. But luckily, I feel like we're in a good position because we're always had full-time jobs. We're a little older, like I said. I think we're kind of like, late-ish 20s by then. But it's like that youth that just sort of like we weren't just like throwing caution in the wind, which sort of I was talking to Reese this morning about it, funnily enough, the old guitarist at a series, and I was saying, like, don't regret anything. Because he's like, imagine if we did all that when we were like 21. And I'm like, well, yeah, but I don't reckon we would have done it the way we did it. Like harking back to my original sentiment of shit needs to be thoughtful and meaningful and not thrown together. Like when I was 21, I would have just thrown shit together, and I would have been super derivative of, would have just ripped bands off. I just probably would have sounded like Kiss Chasey, even more so than I do right now. But so I think that was just good timing. I think for us to be a little bit older and just a little bit wiser, and we could take our time with it. And we never so since then we were never like we got offers to tour US and stuff like that, and we're just like, no, we don't want to do that. We just sort of our manager Rowan, shout out Rowan, he's the best. He says he's never said no to more in this band. He's never said like no for a band as much as Ceres ever. We say no more than we say yes. I think that's kind of a little bit of our ethos because we just don't want to rush into things or I don't know. I looked up to bands. I was saying to Reese this morning. I looked up to bands like Brand New and what's another like I don't know, Modest Mouse and sort of that indie emo adjacent bands who just held themselves in like really good regard, especially Brand New. I love a band that doesn't give away the keys. I keep talking about like not giving away the keys to records and stuff because in this day and age, you just know everyone needs to know everything right now about everything. And it's like, no, fuck that. Like you don't even want to find it out yourself. Don't even want some intrigue. And so I always looked up to bands like Brand New. Like they really didn't do many interviews. There was not a lot of like, I just liked that they were mysterious and they didn't give things away, and you could just sort of like write your own story, especially about the records. So like that was a big inspiration for us. So we never really, we definitely didn't like play the game that much. We much to Stu's chagrin, I think we sort of did it our own way. And Ro's the champion of that now. He's like he totally gets what we do and how we do it. So and now especially more than ever, like we can just, there's not a lot of stress to blow up now. So we can just relax and do the things we want to do.
It is actually very fascinating because when I remember first hearing about Ceres, I remember sort of thinking there's not a whole lot of sort of info about these guys. And in hindsight now I'm thinking, okay, that was all very considered. And
Yeah.
I'm glad you mentioned the idea of things being like designed and thought through. But I mean, this is just me sort of thinking out loud now because like you think of bands who when they're like a lot of younger bands, they'll basically say, got to say yes to every show imaginable. Then you also have bands who are very stuck in their ways with their like ethics and the way that they do things, like bands like Fugazi, for example. They will only sort of, that they have a series of ethics and they stick to them. So, I mean, is it the sort of thing where you think it's great to have these ethics, but at the same time, imagine where we could have been had we been saying yes to everything. Like, is that something that you ever think of at all?
I think maybe that was our point this morning, like Reese and I saying like, what if it was like what we were like when we were 21? Because we wouldn't have had those ideals. I think, I don't know, maybe we would have. I mean, I was listening to Brand New when I was 21, so I don't know. But no, yeah, I just don't really care about that. I'd rather stick to our, as you say, ethics, like and our morals and our ideals. And I don't want to be the biggest band. I just want to be the bands that connects the most. And sometimes too much info is too much. I said it in a post the other day. Well, I wrote something the other day for a newsletter, and I said, I think the worst thing a band can do is say something when they don't have anything to say. And so if you meter out the things you say, when you say them, they're more impactful. So if you, like, case in point, our band, we didn't talk for 4 years, not together. Sorry, we were talking together, but we didn't outwardly talk to. Everyone thought we broke up. We never announced a hiatus. We didn't say anything. Because we didn't know. We're not saying stuff that we don't know. And so we just didn't have anything to say. So we just don't say it. And so for us to come back, that makes that a lot more impactful. But that wasn't like, oh, don't say anything now because like when we come back, we'll be able to sell more records or anything like that. It's purely just don't say something if you don't have something to say. So that so we're probably, luckily we're not doing it now because, well, sorry, not luckily we're not starting a band now with those ideals because I think it would be really hard now because of the expectation of fans. But I think like we get told that we've got really, really, really strong fan base, that diehard fan base, and I love it. It's like it's the reason we do it. Like we wouldn't be putting this record out if our fans weren't listening to it. And I think that comes down to like how we treat them. Like we treat them with respect. We don't shove shit down their throat. We meter out content. We meter out. We're thoughtful and meaningful. I keep saying that, sorry, but the way so that even that is a level of design that I think about, where it's like, just don't say things if you don't have anything to say. I don't keep repeating it, but that's that's the ethos.
I get it. And that's something I really do respect about a band like Ceres as well, where you are able to, again, go into that sort of very thought out sort of way and sort of being like, do we have anything to say? No. Then why say anything? Because, I mean, it is the sort of thing where bands today, they are forced to feed the algorithm and just to sort of keep up the engagement when they have nothing to say, and then it becomes completely useless. But I also almost feel like you're actually reading my questions, because one of my next questions I had for you was, something I find really interesting about Ceres is that there is no such thing as someone who just likes the band. It's either this binary of you either don't know them or you love them.
Yeah.
So I guess that seems like something that you've noticed, but I guess why do you think that is? Or does it relate back to sort of what you were saying before, how you also respect the fans and effectively give them what they want?
We get told like exactly that there's sort of there's no gray area. It's just like, I'm sure there's people who hate our band too, Tyler. I love you to say we don't know them or we love them, but yeah, I feel like and we don't know any different, which is amazing. So I mean, this is my first band, so I don't know. I haven't been in another band that's struggled with fans or something. Well, I think we're just really lucky, but I do think it's because of how we treat them with respect and be honest. So all that shit is like, if you're not saying something, then you're not saying something because you're honest about it, because you don't have anything to say. And when you do say something, be honest about it. That obviously is that's a big part of the music writing as well. So lyricism and the stories, like all that stuff's real. Hence why, like, I don't know if another record's coming down the line, because I don't know what I'm going to write about. I don't know if there's anything too worthy of it to write about. So we hold our music and what we create, that like anything that we create, we hold in such high regard, and it needs to be meaningful. And so I think fans can like hopefully read into that, and then just it's a snowball effect. It's sort of like, it's respect in, respect out. I think. So if you're just not getting on the phone going, like on an Instagram going, hey legends, like, I don't know, like there's just a way to hold yourself that I'm not saying that's bad, and that's almost a necessity this day and age. But for us, I think it's about respecting the fans and I don't know, not giving away the bands. It's weird. It's actually really, I do like struggle explaining it, because on one hand, I need to be like explicitly honest. I have to be in the music and in conversations with someone like you. And I want honesty the whole time. But I also don't want to give away all of it. So there's almost like this dishonesty where I'm just like obfuscating stuff because I just want them to find it themselves. So yeah, there's just I don't know, a little bit of hand holding going on and stuff like that. I think I don't know. It's complicated. Long story short, no idea why we have such good fans. I think.
I mean that also makes sense, because it is a sort of thing where, what works for you works for you. The way that you guys conduct the band will not work for every other band out there, but it works for you guys, and that's great. And I also sort of like how you're talking about, that honesty, and also not, hand holding, because I don't know if this is just me, but whenever I sort of hear a song, for example, that has lyrics that are just so blunt in terms of, I guess, giving away and sort of leading you along, I'm just sort of like, I appreciate the honesty, but I sort of cringe a little bit, and I'm sort of like, leave a little bit more mystery. And I don't know if that's me being a bit too precious with the way I enjoy music, but that is the sort of thing where I'm sort of like, I want to dig a little bit deeper. I want you to sort of like maybe sort of, cloud the emotion that you're feeling a little bit, and let me work out whether or not you're actually feeling happy or sad. Sort of leave me there, but don't push me over the edge.
Absolutely.
And,
I think a big inspiration lyrically for me was Death Cab and like Ben Gibbard. He does what you're saying perfectly in my mind. It's 99. It's so close to being blunt and just giving away the line, giving away the thought, but it's just like crafted and tweaked in a way where it's just it feels mundane, but it's just incredible. My mum was an English teacher, and so we grew up reading a lot of books together. And our favorite writer, Australian writer, is Tim Winton,
Mm.
and he's the master of just saying like so much in such small amount of words. And so I always really gravitated to writers like that. So like someone like Tim or Ben Gibbard, where they can just say something so impactful and just such a tight economical package. I yeah, I don't think I do that very well, but I try I try to I try to have the impact of the lyrics hit first, and then and to not be completely, you have to have some art around it, I guess. You just
Yeah,
can't be
100%.
just like, it's not stream of consciousness. You need to obfuscate it a little bit just with some frilliness. But I love that kind of like to the point writing for sure.
Yeah, because like I mean, just when you mentioned Ben Gibbard, I was thinking about like the Postal Service and his the song "The District State Sleeps Alone Tonight." Beautiful song. The lyrics are very sort of like you had that idea of what's going on, but it could actually be going anywhere.
Mm.
And then I also think of like one of my favorite songwriters is John Darnielle of the band The Mountain Goats.
Yes.
And he like I was listening to one of his songs only a couple of days ago. It's a song that was only like it was a B-side on a 7-inch from like 94, the most, punk sounding thing imaginable.
Yeah.
But the entirety of the lyrics, it's literally him just sort of saying, like, oh, the house is empty now, and I am now eating from a can of boiled peanuts. And
Mhm.
but you're listening to it and you're like, I know exactly what's going on, but he's not spoon feeding me anything.
No.
And it's just this amazing. I mean, you mentioned your mother being an English teacher. I feel like that's the sort of thing where she'd be looking at that and being like, A plus,
Yeah,
Yeah,
100%. That's probably what I'm trying to do, is just trying to get A pluses from mum every time I write
yeah,
something. But yeah, that I mean, Mountain Goat's true. Like I used to listen to that band a lot too. I think he was kind of like uh what's that? This like the New Year single, or I'm gonna make it through this
this
year.
year.
This year,
Yeah,
yes. I mean that's the crossover hit, I guess, that everyone listened to. But I listened to that, and he had a what's that one, like the Pear Tree or something like that. There was an
yeah.
EP that was
Black
just
Pear Tree with Kaka
like,
King.
yeah, my God, that thing is so good.
Mm.
And you're so right. Like he could just say stuff that just turns on a dime where you're just like, that is incredible. To say, I guess it's just the double entendre, isn't it? You just don't know. You need it needs to be blunt and mundane, but then you need to know that there's like something else. There's another meaning under that. So that's such a trick, and it's really, really hard. And I don't do it very well, but I try.
That's exactly why I don't write as many, as much poetry or as many songs I would like to. But this is enough about me and my stuff because I mean, I remember it was 2019. You guys had the "We Are a Team" album. Now
Mhm.
that was a pretty huge album. Like
Yeah.
that's where you had like a lot of support from Triple J, and you had songs like "Viv in the Front Seat." And to me, that one sort of it seemed a bit proof positive that you guys were on the right track with things. So you had momentum, things were looking good, but then there was some silence, and Ceres disappeared for a while. So I guess I will take a leaf out of what was the book of what we were saying, and to put it bluntly, why was that? Why was there this silence?
Um, it was so that was 20 we like I said, it was 2018 that came out. We recorded it the same year. Viv was 2017, I think. So 2019 we toured. We did a couple of tours off it. Did a bunch of festivals. It was sick. Yeah, it was. You're right. It was such a cool time. But I knew, and we were planning a regional tour for 2020. And then we all know what happened in 2020, COVID, and everything got shut down. But even before that, that felt like good timing. I know like some of us are getting a little burnt out. Like it was a big commitment of time. And this idea of a regional tour is sort of like looming on us, and we're just like, oh, I don't know if we have this in us, but we should. And this is the whole thing about like the series way of doing things, is like you try and do what makes sense to you and feels right. And that didn't really feel right. Because we were constantly told that's the play. You got to go regional, and then you come back to the cities and you play bigger venues. And it's like we don't give a fuck about that. Like the trajectory of the band was so cool, but it didn't feel like in our control really. It was like we were making the music and we're playing the shows, but it was all just sort of like just going like that way. But it wasn't like us like feeling it. Maybe we were, I don't know, but it wasn't the driving force anyway. And so for us to, I just hated like that thing of that, industry stuff of like you do regional, then you come back and then you play 170 Russell, and that's the career move, that's the career show. And I'm like, I was just sitting there going, I don't buy any of this shit. Plus, I don't really want to do a regional tour. So we were actually thinking about canceling that tour. Nothing was announced or anything like that, just canceling plans. And then lo and behold, COVID happened, and it was just this great reset that everyone needed. We were just like, sick. This is good. This feels right. If it didn't, then we would have hustled more and worked through COVID to still be a band and all that sort of stuff. But like I said before, ambition was never be big, never just be, I don't know, just be like, my ambition is just be a band that I would love to be a fan of, I think. And that's probably the driving goal. Like we were talking about fans before, is just be the band that you wanted as a kid. Because there's always some little things in bands just like, I just don't like that, or I don't like that, and it just rocks your like emotional connection to the band. And so I just didn't ever want really a reason for someone to turn off us, I guess. And I definitely not making decisions for an industry reason. No way. So, but then we got to do cool stuff. So like we did like Version and Take Fives, and Sugar J were so supportive of us. It was incredible. So no, it was an amazing time. But then COVID happened. We were like, sick, no tour. That's great. We got together for a few jams and we wrote a few songs that are just on voice memos on my phone. Maybe we'll release them one day, don't know. But one of them was actually called Humming, funnily enough, and then I stole that for another song. But and then we all just got locked down. And so this is a segue into writing the record. If you want to come on this journey with me, Tyler. But
yes, I will take your hand and let's go there.
Okay, let's go. Thank you, brother. Come with me. And then I just started writing music like I did back when I was playing the acoustic show in Croydon at the bar. The competition. I just started writing songs again on my computer, and I think one of the first songs I wrote was a song called 1997, which is on the album, which is originally called, in my Logic file on the computer, it's called Magic Mountain. And it just felt so good. I was like, holy shit. Like I'd learned, like I'd never done that before ever since. So I would use GarageBand back in like high school, and then didn't do anything until Ceres started. And then we had a band. So I didn't need to like record things. I just like, we'd jam and we'd play music on, like we'd record it on our phone, then we'd go to a studio and all this stuff. And it's just like, there was this nice like spark in me, like reignited about just getting back on a computer and sitting down doing things myself. And I then had all this skill that I never had before. Like I could write lead notes, or lead guitar, or I could write bass, and I could just do a shitty drum loop and off we went. And it was kind of like a fully realized song. Demo, I thought. Firstly, I thought it was a demo, but that turned into something else anyway. But this Magic Mountain song came out, and I was like, oh shit, something's going on. Something like creatively is happening here. And that was probably like Feb. I think I looked it up the other day to write it in the newsletter, but it was Feb 2020, end of Feb, something like that. And spoke to Ro, the manager, and just said, I think I just started writing music. So I was just like, I'm just going to record music and write music, and didn't know what it was for. I assumed sort of series. And the more and more I did it, I was like, I love these songs. These songs are pretty important to me now, because this is going to be a long story. Sorry, Tyler.
It's completely fine.
How long we got?
I've got nowhere to be, mate. Don't worry.
How long we got? How long we got? How long we left have we got on the free Zoom? We got 40 minutes on the free Zoom.
Actually, because of this podcast, I actually now pay for Zoom.
Oh, well done. I see you've made it, man. You've made it.
I'm that one person who pays for Zoom.
Yeah. So Magic Mountain was we moved in 2019 when the band was doing really well. My partner and I moved up to where I used to grow up, which is the Dandenongs. And once I moved up there, that was just to get out of the city and stuff like that. It was like, we wanted to buy a house, couldn't afford the city. So we went up there and we bought this beautiful house on an acre block, and I just loved it up there. And it had this studio out the back. That's kind of like another like important thing. All this shit just sort of like fell into place pretty quickly in hindsight. But it had a studio, like a detached studio up the back of the block. And I just set up a makeshift recording studio just with my laptop and a few microphones, guitars, bass, blah blah. So that really helped. And then COVID happened, so I had time. And being up on the mountain. So why Magic Mountain? The song Magic Mountains first started. One of the first songs I wrote that sort of came out because just being, I hadn't been back to the mountain. It was a real impulse buy. We went up there, we bought the house. We were like, fuck, can't believe we're moving back. I was like, can't believe we're moving back home essentially. And then sort of just being around the mountain, just like this nostalgic, melancholy feeling just like came like flooding back. It was incredible, like super powerful. Um, and like I was saying before, like I need a reason to write records. So I said, okay, well, let's lean into this feeling and see how we go. And Magic Mountain was a colloquial name for a hill on the mountain. When in 1997, which is what the song is now titled, we need like a chart with like red bits of string and stuff to make it all make sense. But hopefully I'm not being too confusing. But in 1997, there was a fire on the whole mountain, and my brother and I were kids, and we got evacuated. And I vividly remember like coming over the top of this colloquially known mountain as as Magic Mountain, and a fire truck on the way up, and I heard Fiery yell out, "It's coming over the top of Magic Mountain." And we were like shitting ourselves because we were like, oh, we're going to die, because we saw these flames like licking the canopies of this hill that's called Magic Mountain. And I hadn't thought about that probably since it happened. And I drove up that same road, and that just like came flooding back to me. I'm like, holy shit, I need to go and write a song. That's exactly the same feeling I had with like Viv in the Front Seat. And I've had that feeling, like I was saying at the start, like I've had that feeling ever since I picked up a guitar. Like I need to write a song. It's really strange. So I don't know when, but I must have got back and wrote that song 1997. But it was originally called Magic Mountain. And then the only reason it's called 1997 is because that's the year the fire started. But I hate title tracks on albums. It's a little like pet peeve of mine. It's
I
like,
get it. I'm right there with you.
yeah, I just
Yeah.
it just puts way too much weight on that one song and kind of negates the rest of them and feels contrived, and like I wrote this song, so now this is the album. Like I just truly don't get it. Like it needs to be a body of work, and it needs to have an overarching thing. I don't even like self-titled albums. So, no offense to everyone else who's written a self-titled album, especially bands who like have had records out with great titled albums, and then they just do this self-titled album. Like, what for? What is that like? Is this the definitive one? And then the next record you're going to do is got some other name, and it's just, I'm like, oh, it's such a blip. I think I'm a little like, I don't know, obviously precious about all this stuff.
No, I mean, I completely understand. I mean, I also have that weird thing where I view it the same way. If you have a movie where they say the title of the movie in there,
Yeah.
where it's like that line clearly has a lot of weight, and
Yes.
you just sort of like, it wasn't even a good line. You just sort of like, it was a throwaway line.
100%.
Yeah, that's how I feel with title tracks.
So the title track, yeah, you like listen to it more intently because you're like, okay, is this the reason the record is or whatever? And like more often than not, they're the shittest song on the record. Like I really don't get it. So I was like, no way, this song's not called Magic Mountain. Because as soon as I wrote that, I'm like, I love that title. It has to be the record. I think in hindsight, I didn't even know I was writing a record then. So looking back, I'm like, it has to be called Magic Mountain. For a lot of reasons that we'll get into, but the impetus was that 1997 fire and that feeling of melancholy, that was crazy. So feeling all those feelings, I just ran with that, and that started the first half of Magic Mountain. Basically, was for a year or two, probably like a year and a half, just fucking around writing music and seeing how that went. Ended up sort of thinking, speaking to Rowan, my manager, and saying we'll do a solo record, and he's just like, please don't do a solo record. And I'm like, okay, this has to be Ceres. I'm like, okay, but then I'm like, but how? Because this is not the process Ceres do. We jam together. Like I write the songs, but we come out and fully flesh them out in the studio, in the practice space, and then record them. Everyone plays their parts. This was still like deep lockdown, so there's no way we could get around anyone. Thought for a minute about doing like, postal service sort of just over online, just getting around to record parts. I don't know. I was just egotistical. I was like, it's just coming out of me. I'm kind of like writing like my idea of a perfect Ceres record, because there's compromises in everything you do, and when you have other people, and this is a democracy. And you could argue that it would be a better record with all those guys on it for sure. But at least people now have like a direct facsimile of my brain over that period of time. Just a carbon copy, really. So yeah, Rowan said, my manager said, don't do a solo record. I said, okay, fine. And then I spoke to the band and said, do you mind if I do this one by myself? And that was such such legends about it, completely understood, a little rattled, but I guess just yeah, just gave him their blessing, which was so cool. Because I really thought like if I was in a band and someone's like, "Hey, I'm just going to do all this by myself," I'd be like, "Get fucked."
Mm.
But they weren't. They were like, "Go for it and good luck." And little did anyone know it's going to take another 4 years to release it.
So I definitely want to touch on that on that in one sec. But having come from Adelaide, whenever I hear that the idea of Magic Mountain, I'm always reminded of the little the little fun park over by in Glenelg. So every time I'm hearing of like Magic Mountain, I'm just like, oh, is it about riding the water slides or something? And then I listen to it and I'm like, that's not at all what it's about.
Yeah, yeah, an
So
emotional water slide maybe.
Exactly. Yeah, it's all coming full circle now, I guess. So, as we were sort of touching on before, I guess, about the idea of not being sort of like handheld as you go into something. So, I don't know why I did it. I actually made a decision to, when I heard this album, stay away from any of the news around it. Like when I hear an album, I don't like listening to singles. I like to hear it as one body of work. And I didn't even read any of the news about it. I was like, I'm just going to listen to this album as it is. And I mean, I've come into this chat with almost no context of the record. So hearing you sort of say it's very sort of like came about from a solo point of view. So the entirety of the album, was that just recorded as you like, or did you have anyone else from the band actually come in and sort of say, let's flesh out these guitar lines or something like that?
No, it was all written by me. And so we just took so long to record it. So COVID lifted, restrictions lifted, and we could actually get in a studio proper with Joel. Joel Taylor's our sound guy and engineer. He's got a studio in Brunswick. And so we would meet there. But it was funny. The process was because we also got Tom Bromley from Los Campesinos involved. He's been a long time collaborator of ours, and we love him to death. And I seemingly can't do anything without him, for better or worse. Shout out to Tom from Los Campesinos.
Of course, yeah. Hell of a band too.
Oh, favorite band by far. Like, love them. Like when I know we're digressing again, but I heard Romance is Boring in 2000 and fucking God knows, probably 11 or something like that. And I was just like, that was another period. I'm like, this just is the most incredible record on the planet. I feel like Magic Mountain's a little bit of like my own Lost Camp record, a little bit just long, sprawling, kind of annoying. But it sounds a bit shit, but fucking I love it. I'm proud of that too. Where was I? So, well, yeah, studio time. So it was really cool. We kind of got chances to get the whole band together. Like GY played bass on some songs, Tom Bromley's played bass on some songs, Frankie drummed on most of the stuff, JT engineer, he drummed on things. Shawnee came in, the guitarist, he played some guitar, sung like low male harmonies. Stace Ciccivelli, who's the multi-instrumentalist, she's just been like such a revelation for our band. We love her so much. Well, I just think she just makes our band infinitely better. There was a decision from us by me to sort of like make her a lot more prominent on the record. I'm not sure if you noticed that, but there was like, she has a lot more of a opinion on this record, which I really love. I love her voice, and they
amazing voice. Yeah.
Yeah, we sort of play it. We're luckily like we play off each other pretty well, our voices. She's really kind of high pitched, like she can go. My highest falsetto is her kind of just like normal bass line, but so I think we kind of gel well there. So to have her like singing the start of Britney Spears, or there's duets in there on I Die First, and she's just really strong harmonies throughout the rest of the record. And it is a shame that like she didn't write anything on We're a Team, and then we were super excited to write together for whatever record was coming up, and then COVID, and then I went egotistical and forbid anyone to write anything on this record. So if there is a new record, it's another record after this. It's going to be so. I can't wait to work with Stace because I think she's just amazing. And so everyone was on the record, which is great. I think even Tom Bromley even sings on it for Lost Camp fans out there. He does a little sing on it, which is pretty funny. I think it was a guide track. He goes, "You should do something like this," and I'm like, "Oh, you dipshit! That's going straight in the song." So
shouldn't have done that. It's going to go in the song now.
Yeah, that's in a song called "Sun Shining." So it was cool. It wasn't collaborative, but it was like a team effort by the end of it, which is really, really sick. It meant a lot. I even got Reese, the old guitarist, he plays a part on 96, which is the second last song on the album. So it feels cool that like everyone came in at the end. But yeah, there's just a little like kind of cringy thing from me, just like, fuck, did I really write this whole thing, you know. I don't know.
Yeah. So
We'll
then,
see.
so if you went into it sort of like, solo in a different sort of way that you would usually write an album, how did the rest of the band sort of, obviously they would have come into it a little bit later on in the process and sort of be like, oh, these are the songs that Tom's written. How did they sort of react to it all? Were they sort of saying these are as good as you would have made had it been created the normal way, or what was?
I wish I knew that. I wish I knew that answer, but we don't know. But they were mega supportive. They loved it. They weren't. The process was kind of weird too. Like we would just have a Dropbox, and I just put songs in this Dropbox, and Joel and I would be bouncing ideas back and forth from studio and stuff like that. So there was always just there wasn't like a nice like presentation process that we could give the band and say, okay, here's like listen to this and listen to that. It was just really iterative, and it just went on for way too long. We were iterating for years, basically. Like we haven't stopped working on it until we released it, basically. We got the vinyl mastered, and then we've remastered it. We've remastered the digital, so that's still getting mastered now. And we're like, it's coming out in a month. Like we're still fucking working on this goddamn record. But so this iterative process was, I think, kind of hard for them to keep up with. But they got the bass songs, the demos from my like Logic files and stuff, and they loved it. I think. I mean, you kind of have to ask them, but it was an awkward sort of process where I'm just like, it wasn't a democracy in like, what do you guys think? What should we do? It was kind of just like, if I'm going to do it, I just need to do it myself and kind of blinker on and just sort of knuckle down and get it done. I just thought that was kind of the benefit of it as well. Like if this is an experiment and we just see how it goes, and it should just sort of just be all from me. If we're going to do it halfway, we just may as well do the whole thing. Even so, like, so the original plan was everything I'm writing is demos, everything I'm recording on vocals, everything's demos, right? And then the original plan was we're just going to do a reasonable amount of songs, say a 10-song record, and then we'll get the band in and they'll rewrite all my parts. Sorry, re-record all the parts and sort of put their swing on it and flavor, and potentially that, alternate universe, that would have rendered like a different record and potentially a better one as well. But we started like re-recording vocals and guitar parts, and we sort of got to the point where it's like it didn't feel as good as the demos. This is Joel and Tom's and my opinion. We were just sort of like going back and forth, going, it's like we re-recorded all the vocals for Want Need because that was the first song we did, and we just felt like it's just missing something that, unfortunately, we probably got demo-itis and listened to the demos like way too long, and then we just sort of thought, fuck it, let's just like use as much as my home recording as possible to make it like this the most authentic kind of like bedroomy kind of production, and it's a little lo-fi and it's honest, and some of those most of those vocal takes are one takes, which is crazy. Like sometimes professionally you're in a booth for like an hour trying to get one song out, but I was just like, I would sit there in a chair like I am now with the microphone pressed against my lips, and I'd just sing it, and I'd put the mic down and the mic would go clunk and make a noise, and I'd just like edit the clunk out and then Command S and save it and go, that sounds good enough, and I'm sure we'll like fix it down the line. I'm sure I'll re-record it. And there was just something like haphazard and cool and honest about all the deliveries that I was like, all of us were like, I think we should just keep them in. And so most of it, weirdly enough, is my home recordings as well.
I was going to ask about that because especially on the last track, Viv, like that one feels like it's just, like it almost feels like it was like a bit of a voice memo or something, but with a little bit more, because it feels a little bit more fleshed out with the guitar there. That one, it feels very intimate and almost sort of like, we're getting this little, I mean, the lyrics themselves feel quite, personal, obviously,
yeah.
But then you actually sort of listen to it. You're like, I feel like I shouldn't be hearing this. It almost feels like, someone's opened the door while you're practicing or something.
Yeah, I love that. That's what I hoped that song would do, is just like, I don't want to be here anymore. I don't want to be listening to this song. But it has like, I don't want to give it away, but it has that emotional payoff at the end. Because that's kind of like what the mountain was, climbing that mountain was to get to that point. That was unedited. That was just a one voice memo that Joel just EQ'd, and we just put it on the end because we just thought it was such like a nice way of finishing the record.
I mean, it's an amazing record, I should say. I mean, I don't want to just hit you with praise, but it is a really amazing record. And I don't know about you, but I'm that sort of person. When I listen to an album, it's good, and then there's that one song you hear where it's just sort of like this is taking it from a like a 4 star to a 5 star sort of thing. And for me, it was that song, "Common Everlasting."
Sick.
That, that song, it felt. I mean, I don't know if it was the almost sort of like sing-songy sort of vocals to it or something, but that one really sort of hit me, and it really made me sort of like stand up and sort of be like, shit, this has gone from being a good album to a great album.
Oh, so good.
But again, I don't want to hit you with praise. I just
No,
want to
no,
sort of
no,
point
please
out
do.
that one
Please
out
do.
there.
Please,
Yeah.
please,
Well, I
please.
mean, everybody, we're here talking to musical genius Tom Lanyon about his, top 10 album.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, it is. It's a really amazing record. And I guess I should also ask. So you were talking about Magic Mountain and the story of your from when you were younger and everything. So it's subtitled. Is it 96 to 2022?
Yep.
So what's the importance of that? Because you mentioned 97, but why 96 through 2022? Or is that something we should leave as a bit of a mystery for people to work out themselves?
No, no, yeah. I mean, I did struggle with that too, but I think it was just a bit too kind of obscure. Then I probably should give some context around it. So we are contextualizing that date thing. I just loved it because it was I needed it. I wanted to explain that this is a record that spans 26 years of my life, basically, because the first half of the record was all that nostalgic, melancholy tip of me sort of like rolling through memories of my childhood and stuff. So, Britney Spears is about teenage love, and 97 is about the fires when I was kids. Like all that sort of stuff was very like nostalgic for me. And then we moved to the mountain because we were trying to start a family. And well, we were trying in Melbourne too, and then we moved to the mountain, and we were trying and failing and trying and failing and trying and failing, and we finally got pregnant. And my partner had a miscarriage, and that was through halfway through writing the record. I actually think I thought I'd probably finish the record. Sunshining was going to be the end of it, and I was like, "Oh, that's a good record, kind of melancholy and cool." And then this big life altering thing happens again, and I'm just like, "Fuck, I don't think I'm done with this record yet." And then that's where the second half of the record. I don't really like calling it second half. I don't even like calling it a double album, to be honest. I just want it to be a piece of work.
Yeah, I mean
But
that's exactly how I listened to it as well. I
cool.
didn't sort of listen to it as all right, like I listened to the digital files I was given. It's not like I sort of said, all right, gonna turn it off the
This
turntable, put the next bit
this
on, sort of
too,
thing. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So, but I love how you can feel it fall off. I'm not sure if you noticed, but from Sunshining to a song called Holly Hill, there's this big sort of like emotional sort of drop into this
Mm.
lo-fi song about. I wrote that the day we found out we had a miscarriage, and there's a line in there, pretty like dark line about not wanting to brush my teeth because I don't want to see myself in the mirror.
Yes,
Um,
actually, that's a line I definitely remember hearing and
cool.
thinking, this feels like there's something going on behind the scenes
Yeah,
here.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So that was really cool. Like that. I mean, you gotta hurt for art, don't you? Like, that's my favorite art. Like when I was listening to fucking. I mean, what bands were I talking about? When I was listening to any kind of emotional song when I was like a kid, when I was 10 years old, and I felt that sad feeling, but it made me feel good. Not to bring up Jebediah again, but they got a song called "Happy or Sad," and I totally agree. Like I'm happy or sad,
Mm.
um, and in an artistic sense, anyway. And so that Sunshining song is so big and verbose and kind of ridiculous and very like not really serious at all. And then I love it. It sort of just falls off the cliff into this just deep dark well, and I got to climb back out for the rest of the record, all out to the top to the end of the song called Viv, end of the record, sorry, called Viv, and I just realized I couldn't. So I just started writing songs about that, and so that was hummings about that. Basically, the rest of the record is kind of me dealing with my partner and I's relationship after that, and I'm struggling with the issues of that creates, and of grief and loss and all that sort of stuff. Which is funny because it mirrors the first half of the record too, because a lot of that stuff's about like when I was a kid, my dad died up there, so there was all sort of that loss. That's why there's a song on the first half called "Loss Number One." And that's kind of like the dad loss, and then Holly Hill's kind of loss number two. I should have put that in brackets, I guess. Um, and yeah, so that's when I was like, well, what do we do now? Like, what record do we put out? I can keep writing in this feeling, and I'll know I will write some good songs. And I've got this nostalgic album, but they're kind of like intertwined. They're like interlinked. It's crazy. So like I'm back up on this mountain where I was singing about this stuff, and now this bad things happen to me, and I'm like, it was just I don't want to sound opportunistic, but it was like an opportunity for something to happen. And I'm like, well, okay, let's just keep writing. Um, and I got thematically got to the end of the record, as you know, with Viv, which I kind of don't want to give away, but that last song, I was like, that's the full stop, and then I'm done. So I'm like, fuck it, let's just put them all out. I said to Joel and Tom, like, let's do 25 songs. We could have done more. We had other songs. We had cut them out. But I think I had like 50 songs demoed for this record, which we've never done before in our lives. A series of only ever, like, you know, that thing of like say something when you have something to say. Every song we've put out are the only songs we've ever done. We've rarely had a B-side. Maybe there's like one B-side in a whole thing, our whole catalog. So this was like a unique opportunity to be like fleshing it out with songs. And I just love long records. I love like on Magic Mountain as well, you can wallow in a feeling. You don't have to, one song doesn't have to do it. You can go for 3 songs. Like there's like that, there's like a quiet part of the record in like the side D, I guess, on the vinyl. There's sort of like, what songs would they be? Like Mercury in the Next Room, and then sort of Apollo. And there's some songs where like you can slow down and wallow, and it just doesn't have to be like, on a 10-song record, it doesn't have to be the sad song, or doesn't have to be the acoustic song. Like I feel like that kind of cheapens it, and it's a bit of a novelty. Whereas this is like you can just like actually live in it for a few songs and be like, and maybe people hate that. I'm sure I'm expecting like probably backlash from this record. Maybe reviewers like you might have done back in the day, Tyler, like roasted me saying it's fucking too long, and like there's flat parts of the record, but that is completely by design. Like I wanted to wallow in feelings, like in some sadness or some melancholy that you can't just do over a 10-song record.
Actually, it's a little funny you sort of say that, because I mean, I'm a fan of. I mean, I'm the sort of person who doesn't believe in the more is less sort of thing when it comes to content. Like, sure, when it comes to writing, you know, less is more sort of thing. I think I got it the other way around. Less is more when it comes to writing, but when it comes to actual like music or something, more is more. I think more is great. Like one of my favorite bands announced a new album a couple of days ago, and I looked at the track list, and one of the shortest songs is 12 minutes, and I'm like, that's it? I'm like, come on, got to give me something to work with, guys.
How good.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm also someone who is a staunch, what's the word, supporter of like, you know, what's the one I think of, like track list curation. So like I'm someone who would always make, you know, like a mixtape or a mix CD or something. And I'm the sort of person who is like, okay, you've got to get the vibe going. You start strong maybe, or start slow, but you don't go from like, you know, slow, happy back and forth. You need to wallow in that. You need to feel something for a couple of songs. And that's something as well I really appreciate about this record. So I can imagine that you're feeling, you know, I guess a little bit nervous to get it out there because it's a little bit different to everything else. But I guess with this comeback that, you know, Ceres have had, I mean, or are in the process of, how is actually sort of like feeling, sort of saying Ceres are back, you know, because there has been some shows already and the response seems strong. So I guess, is that a sign of good things to come, or will we have to wait another 5 years for the next album?
No, I'm revved. I want to go. Like when I was thinking about this morning, I just want to go into a studio and write a 10-song record, not think about it too much, and make a Japan Droids record or a Cloud Nothings record or something like that. Just guitar rock the fuck out of it and just, you know, but I just don't think I'm capable of that as well. I think I'm just completely too cerebral and overthought. But the response has been amazing, but it does feel like we never left. I've been working on this record since the start of 2020. So it's like, people were like, you know, some people going, miss you Ceres, like I can't believe you're not around anymore. I'm like, dude, I am. I'm busting my ass trying to get this record out the whole time. To be honest, you've been living with it so long. I can't listen to it anymore. But so it didn't ever feel like we'd left, which was cool. We never announced anything. It's not like we were like, see you guys, hiatus, or like, you know, that's sort of a bit of a pick me thing, I reckon. But I just felt I was just working on something and I just couldn't wait to show people. So for me to finally say it's, and just to talk about it, like even to talk about it with you is just incredible. Like to talk to someone about it that hasn't been involved in it is a treat. I'm having a great time right now because it's just, there's shit on your chest. I do love getting like your opinion and seeing how, like I love how you're reacting to it. It's exactly like the intention. But just to get it off your chest, and for us to get it off our chest and just be like, just goddamn, here it is finally. Especially because it's like it's 25 songs. We it's more than two records worth of content that we had to like content, that's the worst word, sorry, of
I get it.
material.
Yeah.
Yeah, that we had to labor over. And like I realized I'm pretty like, finicky, and so yeah, it was a lot of work, but
Mm.
but we did it. And I'm proud of it, fucking proud of it.
And I mean, I also actually understand that because I mean, I've spent the last year and a bit working on a book, and I have announced it only just this last week, and it's like, oh, good, I can actually finally talk to people who are not involved with it, which is mainly me and a couple of other people who I've spoken to, and you're suddenly able to put it out in the world and be like, all right, I will field questions about it because you don't know what's going on,
Isn't
you haven't been in the process. It's an amazing
isn't
feeling, isn't it?
isn't it? It's
Yeah.
incredible. My ever since listening, releasing records is, um I can't listen to the album anymore because we worked on it too long. And then you put a song out and someone says a nice thing about it, and you're like, oh, cool. And you listen to the song again. You're like, this is a good song. Like,
Mm.
this is good. What am I
Because you're
talking
finally
about?
hearing
So
it in the context of how someone else would be hearing it for the first time, aren't
exactly,
you?
yeah. And
Yeah.
it's just cannot live in your head for that long. It's just, yeah. I would never do a record. I would never work on a record for this long ever again, because it's just like it was pretty labor intensive, and I think it sent all of us mad, including JT and Bromley. But we're so proud of it. I remember saying to Tom, like, Tom's a man of few words, and he's not effusive with his compliments, but I fish all the time for it, because one, I'm a fan of his bands, and I'm a LC fan first, and then like Collaborator second. I feel like, but I asked him, I said, we did good, right? We did good, and he goes, yeah, mate, we did good. Feels like we made a mark, and I'm like, whoa, that was such a cool thing, because yeah, I wanted it to. Someone wrote about it. Someone wrote about the record saying thematically it's unlike anything he's ever heard before, in like an Australian album, I guess, in like the themes it's dealing with and stuff. I know, I guess, how personal it is and stuff like that. But I love that too. So Bromley saying, yeah, we made a mark is like best compliment I could get. Even though I'm
Well,
paying him to say that, so I don't know who to believe.
well, I am definitely glad we are on the cusp of getting a Ceres Chinese democracy. So I'm very happy about that. But I
Yeah.
guess in the interest of time, I probably should get down to the portion of the podcast from which its
Okay.
namesake is derived. So trusty chord sees me follow the 1-3-5 structure of standard chord and ask you about one artist that's impacted you, 3 albums that have influenced you, and 5 songs you can always turn to. And these albums and songs don't need to be by your one artist either. So I guess, Tom, for yourself, who is the one artist that has inspired you the most, whether it be personally or creatively?
Oh my God, Tyler. Um,
If an hour and 15 minutes to think of one, yes, and you spend the entire time talking about yourself.
I know, damn it. I think, just for lack of a better one, it's probably Jebediah, which is so funny because Tyler and I were just talking about it off air that, I listened to his Jebediah interview, and it just gave me insight into Monument, which is like one of my favorite songs. And I took that into the guitar shop to learn when I was in year 8. And so if that's not an impact on my life and sort of kickstarting my love of playing guitar, then I don't know what is. So that Monument was on a CD single of Jebediah's Leaving Home.
Mhm.
So I had that, and I had another song which was a live song. Can't remember what it was. I could sing it too,
Oh,
but
yeah. I
it goes,
actually have
it's really sick. And what is
I'm
it? Can
really
you
trying
work
to
it?
think what it is I'm looking it up as we speak. So
Okay.
hopefully my rambling could be a bit of a
Uh,
fill it.
anyway, I'll keep talking. But so I like wore that CD out. That song, Leaving Home, was like such a special song to me. But I think the fact that I could like a B-side more was like a sort of a powerful realization of me. Like I'm not told to like the single. I kind of like. I think a good record is when the single's the least favorite one on the album. I think you've succeeded a little bit there, and Monument was a B-side. Like it wasn't even on like Slightly Odd Way, which is crazy. And
The song you're thinking of, by the way, it's Thought About It.
thought about it,
Yes.
so good.
Yeah, I could
Like,
I could I could think of like I had the track list in my mind, but there's a little blank space where
yeah,
the title was. Yeah,
and I think it was a live recording. Is that
it
right? Like,
was. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
so good. Wow.
There's
So that
something
was.
I oh,
Sorry,
go
you
ahead.
go.
I
I know
was
you
just
go.
saying what I find amazing actually is that, as you said, it's not on the album, but I. Because I'm a music nerd, I got a Japanese import of that Jebediah album, and it's included at the end. And to me, that makes the album.
Definitive
Yeah.
definitive
The
fucking
only
record.
downside is that it so the last song on there is La Di Da Da,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
that one has like a few minutes of silence, but it excises that silence, so it's no longer a long song. It's a shorter version. I think it pops on Monument and Tracksuit at the end, and to me that makes a perfect album. It
100%.
like it goes from being a 9.9 to a 10.10. I don't know. That's 11, I think. But
But yeah, yeah, it's turning up to 11.
yeah,
Yeah, I mean, like for to have that as a B-side, that's crazy. Yeah, they blew that. They should have had that on there. They could have been a really big band, Tyler, if they followed my
yeah.
advice.
No, well.
So yeah, I guess really influential. Jebediah is my answer.
And then what are three albums that have impacted you the most? This could be albums you're just always throwing on or something integral to your own musical evolution.
Holly Throsby's Under the Town.
Mm.
Just
I mean, her voice is amazing.
I
You
love
can't
it.
get past it. Yeah.
That record is just was so influential to me because it's so simple. When you mentioned Common Everlasting and the nursery rhyme melodies, that was something I kind of took from Holly. And I liked it too because it was dealing in sort of miscarriage and stuff like that. So weirdly, like it's kind of a bit gross, almost like horroristic or something. That like there was this nursery element to it. But Holly just wrote the most simple songs, and that was so crushing. She's like the Tim Winton equivalent in music, and she's a writer too. She writes books, and I just completely was obsessed with that album. And the one before that, which I'm blanking on.
I'll
Anyway,
do some fact checking while you're thinking there. But I've got the album artwork in my mind as we
me
speak.
too. Up with the Birds or something. Oh God, sorry.
That's okay. I'm looking at Wikipedia as we speak, but the internet's decided to go slow right when I'm trying to answer
Yeah.
questions. Um,
But anyway, Under the Town, it was such a record. That thing is just so powerful to me, so simple and so hard to do. And she was Australian and she was inspiring and she was quiet but tough. I just loved it. Still love it. One of my favorite records for sure,
the
which
album
I guess makes sense because it's the part of the segment.
I think the album you're thinking of is On Night.
One
Was the
night,
album before
fuck.
that. And actually, funnily enough, so you mentioned Holly Throsby. When she was actually promoting the Under the Town, she went
Mhm.
on Like a Virgin back in the day. She covered Mistress by the Red House Painters,
Oh,
another
wow.
amazing band and a phenomenal cover. And that album opens with a cover of Gyroscope doing Jebediah's Monument. It's all coming full
Oh
circle, mate.
my God.
This is what I mean when I say I'm a
What?
bit of a music nerd.
I
But
love how I love how that's off the top of your head. That was
yes,
like
I'm
five bands removed.
yes, and I'd be great for the musical, 6 degrees of separation. But
Holy
but
shit.
before we
Well,
get into
they,
that, I should ask you what your second album is, if I'm not interrupting your train of thought
no,
there.
I was just thinking it all make my musical taste is linear. Like you can just trace it back
Mhm.
to I don't know. I love it. I love it. Second influential album, probably yeah, Cop Out, but I guess it's Dude Ranch because of the tape I was talking about, just wearing that thing out. Um, Also gravitated towards obviously love Damn It, love Josie, but there's a song on there called Emo, and I
Mm.
love that because it was sad. There's a song called Apple Shampoo and Lemmings. I'm sorry. There was songs on that record that were actually sort of sad.
The,
Um,
the one that always got me was it's a bit crass to say, but Dick Lips.
Dick
That one
Lips.
is just it's a beautiful song despite the
Yeah,
name. It's
yeah,
it's
that's
a it's
right.
a really sad one. Like you're really getting an
Yeah,
insight into the familial side of it.
totally. So I mean, people throw away that band like just it's pop punk bullshit. But when you're a kid and you're sort of dealing with growing up, like it was just perfect timing for me. But it was just also like just all signs are pointing to me gravitating towards sort of sadder songs. And so like the last two songs on that record, which are Lemmings and I'm Sorry, are like just such sick songs, super sad. Uh yeah, so unfortunately, Blink 182.
I mean, there's nothing wrong with Blink. They're a brilliant band. I think the last few albums might have soured that legacy a little bit, but
Yes, my
I'm not
God.
really here to
No,
pass
yes.
too much judgment.
You're not a reviewer or anything like
No,
that.
no, no, nothing at all. I'm just I'm a casual observer in this position. And we've got one album left there.
I just remember hearing this record and just couldn't believe what I was hearing. When you have, and I don't think I'll ever have that experience again. And the song was Glossary by Sigur Rós,
Mhm.
from their album Attack. And I just heard that one time and I just shit my pants. It was just the most beautiful, heaviest, craziest thing I'd ever heard. Just no, like Hopelandic lyrics, half made up. Um, just so inspiring. Just could not believe that was like, when you hear a band and you're like, please keep making music, like please don't stop. I need this forever kind of thing. And they've like kind of like lost me a little bit now, but that Tack is just one of the most incredible records. And I think it ties together all that sort of swoon. I'm sorry to keep linking it back to the start of the conversation,
No, by all means.
but it's that Swoon 2 thing from Mum, like a Sleepless Snow came flying, was this orchestral piece that was just so beautiful, and so was Sigur Rós, like, but it was rock orchestra. It sounds awful when you say it that way, but I just remember Hoppy Polar and Tack and Closeley, and just the whole record just absolutely blew my mind. And it just, music could be anything you want it to be. And I love it.
And especially just the whole, like the Hopelandic lyrics as well. I mean, it's amazing that you can make an album like that, making up your own damn language.
Yeah.
I mean, the album, my favorite one of theirs is the one before that, the one with the two parentheses,
the brackets, yeah.
the untitled one. That to me, that's a 10 out of 10 album as well. Like I don't hand out 10 out of 10s, like I'm handing out, candy on Halloween or something. But
if you give me Magic Man one, then you are, Tyler. Trust me.
I've got to say it's in the high nines, I think. That's for sure.
Yes,
it's a bloody good album. But
really?
yeah,
no,
honestly,
I'm not fishing. We'll talk about it. We'll talk about it offline.
We can talk about that. But yeah, no, I agree with you completely with Sigur Rós though. It's something. It almost feels like it shouldn't work when you say like orchestral and rock and everything. But they are honestly one of my favorite bands and one of the most ethereal live experiences I've ever had as well.
I saw them with a mate at the Palais in St Kilda, and that was on their Tack tour. And dude, it was. We ran out. We were, I don't know how old we were, but we ran out of the venue. We didn't know what to do. We were so emotionally affected. We ran down the street. We were just running, and I don't know why. It was just it was the most incredible show I've ever seen.
I highly doubt many people in St Kilda have seen people running down the street and saying, what are they under the influence of? Sigur Rós.
We did start taking our clothes off too. So they're like, oh, it's just a Saturday night. It's all good.
That's what the kids are calling it these days.
Yeah.
Now,
you got a couple of Sigur Rosses?
And lastly, I'd love to know the 5 songs you can always turn to, whether it be for comfort, for excitement, anything at all, your 5 trusty songs.
Definitely, I've got to say a Lost Camp song for sure. I'm going to say Sea is a Good Place to Think of the Future, which is off Romance is Boring. That's the first Lost Camp song I heard, and I was just like, similar to Sigur Rós, I was just like, holy shit, like I want this band to make music forever. That really, really, I haven't listened to it in a long time, so it's kind of maybe not hitting the mark totally, but it is one of those songs where I was just like, okay, this is important and new and sort of saying something different and sounded incredible. And then I listened to the whole Lost Camp discography, then I listened to the whole Romance is Boring, and it's just like this frenetic, like I can't believe people that young made that record. It was just incredible. I still don't know how they made it. They've never really made anything since like it. So like they've out of necessity, like they've matured. They're making like actually proper music now. But that was just point in time, incredible music. And so was Sea is a Good Place.
That song. I mean, I remember playing it once, and someone actually said to me, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "I am having the time." I mean, even as you mentioned the name of that song, I had a bit of a chill come over me because it's such a beautiful song. And I mean, because the first time I heard that band, it was that song of theirs. This is how you spell ha ha ha. We destroyed. Hopes and dreams of a generation of faux romantics. And then you're going to that one as a bit of a, it's chalk and cheese almost, really. But it is emblematic of how amazing they are and versatile they are as songwriters.
100%. It's like they're amazing. They're incredible. Favorite band. And then like so for me as a kid who started his second album and just emailing Tom out of the blue saying, "Can you come to Australia? We'll fly to Australia and can you make a record?" And he just was like, "Yep, cool, we'll do it." Like blew my mind.
Amazing.
Cool. Lost Camp done. Tick. Because I got that out of the blue, so Tom's not going to bash me later. Just looking at all my I can Never Meant by American Football.
Yes.
Very important song, very important band to me. That album especially, but yeah, Never Meant. First time I heard Never Meant was on a snowboarding video game.
An odd choice for a snowboarding game?
Fully, don't you reckon? It had the most incredible like emo soundtrack, and yeah, you're trying to do 1080s. It wasn't 1080, it was some like other game, but yeah, and just never meant this like heartbreaking song about like lost love as in childhood is playing as you're going down this like digital mountain. It's very strange, but yeah, never meant an American football super important band to me, and I love that song so much.
Truly, and I mean, unfortunately, I think that band ruined all photographs of house
Of
windows
houses,
for everyone. You can't take a photo without everyone saying, "Oh, a bit emo, are we?"
100%. Like they're perfect. They just like invented I didn't invent the genre, but they just like I
They
don't know.
perfected it in a way. Yeah.
Exactly, that's right. Uh, what else would it be? Just super important song. What did I say? I've so Sea's a good place. Never meant. A dashboard confessional song, surely. Screaming infidelities, I'd
Mm.
say. Just that was another eye-opening thing for me. I'm just like, this is like, I remember a friend at the time was like, it's like the acoustic song on a punk record, but a whole record of them. I'm
Actually,
like,
I mean, I can see how old mate Chris would actually want to keep that theme going because it is. I mean, he makes. I always feel like I just heap people with praise when they have these suggestions, but I mean, Dashboard is amazing, and if you're able to sort of keep that vibe going of the acoustic song on a punk album for a whole album, that's pretty impressive. To keep
like he
that
did
energy and that emotion is great.
exactly, and that was so. It was just incredible. It was so emotional as well, like so, kind of cringy almost to the point. Um, where I think yeah, he fails in that regard that you were talking about, and I agree. Where it's just too blunt and too sincere, like kind of the cringe of the sincerity like overwhelms the kind of like intent of the lyric a little bit. But it wouldn't change a thing. Perfect record. I think that's off Swiss Army. Weirdly, like there's two versions of it. There's one on like Swiss Army Romance, and then there's another. I don't know how that happened. So he did like first record, Swiss Army, second record or whatever it was, Swiss Army Romance, and it had two songs on it that were then on the next record. That'd be like Drag It Down and you're having two songs, and then We're a
Yeah.
Team having the exact same songs re-recorded. Truly don't understand it. I reckon it sounds like a bit of major label
I
fuckery there.
think it was major label because I'm actually looking it up as we speak, and yeah, it was on the album from beforehand. So that was his first album. I assume he must have recorded it, got signed. I think he got signed to Vagrant Records.
Mm.
So they would have said, you know what, these are good songs. Might want to polish them off a bit.
Yeah, how funny.
Yeah,
Because it's like, but like as a fan, we were listening to Swiss Army Romance, and it's like the new dashboard's coming out, and it's like, who are the same songs from the last record re-recorded? Wow, that's pretty weird.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, connected to that so powerfully just because I was a little emo kid growing up. Um, just I'm kind of thinking like formative songs. They're not like my favorite right now, but like they would be just absolutely sort of those sort of songs like were forming who I was as a person. I think. Who else was I listening to? Well, how about I do a new song, a new band that I
Go
love
for it.
right now? There's a band called Armlock. Have you heard of them?
I have not heard of them actually.
Dude, listen to them. They're so good. They're out on Run for Cover, which is an American kind of like punk emo label,
Yes.
which is pretty cool. But they're a Melbourne band. Um,
Right.
I have to go see them. I'm obsessed with that band. They've got two EPs out, and the newest one's called Seashell Angel Lucky Charm, I think it's called. And there's a song on that called Guardian. This is actually really bad segment because I'm just talking about a song that no one's heard.
Oh
But
no. It's
go listen.
it's great for the discovery. That's what I love about
Cool.
this.
Okay, yeah. Well, everyone listening, go listen to Guardian off Armlock's latest EP. They're incredible band. I love them, and just make the Melbourne makes it even better. And they're kind of like slacker emo, shoegazy emo kind of, and I love it. So that's a song I'm absolutely loving at the moment. And then like, what would be like? It's gonna suck because we're gonna hang up, and I'm gonna be like, that is like my ultimate song, and I've totally forgotten it.
You know what? If that happens, feel free to just get in contact with me and I can add it as like an honorable mention when I put it on the website as well.
Okay, sick. That'd be amazing. Yeah. I think one song lately, oh, sorry, the last couple of years that was really influential to me. Another shout out Triple R, the radio station in Melbourne. I don't Magic Mountain. I know Want Need would not that song would not exist without that radio station because of the influence. And shout out to my partner Dana because she's just way cooler than I, and all she does is listen to Triple R. And that radio station just opened my ears to so much good music. Just I would never, ever, ever have listened to before. And it informs a lot of Magic Mountain stuff. So shout out to those guys. And I heard in the car Gretel by Alex G.
Right. Yes.
And that song, that Alex, hadn't really ever heard Alex G before. And hearing Gretel, like he's kind of like more well known now, but on that record, House of Sugar, I just heard that song. It was just so creative and kind of emotional and kind of like a little emo, but acoustic and but tough and scary and all that kind of perfect, kind of like brand new-esque. He's not at all. He probably skews more Bon Iver than anything, but that I love that. I love that kind of growing up listening to like post-hardcore bands, and I was always like scared to listen to them, like bands like Thursday. I'm like, oh god, like this is a scary band, and I probably shouldn't be listening to them. There's a kind of like a little bit, yeah, and there's a little sort of scary kind of aspect about Alex G. But if you haven't heard that, give that a listen too. So there you go, 2 recommendations and 3 emo songs.
I love it. Well, I should say, Tom Lanyon, I want to say thank you so very much for your time today. This is currently the longest podcast we've had, but as I said before, more is more. So I love it. So thank you for your time and for being part of the Trusty Cause podcast.
Thank you, man. Thank you, brother. I do see the irony of me saying, if you don't have something to say, don't say it. And then we do the longest podcast known to man. But man, thank you, Tyler. Thanks so much for having me on. And thanks for giving my record 9.9.9 stars out of 10 or whatever you're giving it. But man, I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. You're I love your podcast, and it's as I said, it's so nice to be talking about this record with someone that isn't my mum.
Thank you for listening to Trusty Chords. If this episode was as enjoyable for you to listen as it was for me to make, then I would seriously love it if you were able to like, share, review, and subscribe to this podcast on your preferred platform of choice. As always, no obligation, but I'm forever grateful if you do. If you're eager to follow along on social media, you can find me on Instagram and Facebook at Trusty Chords Podcast, all one word. There's also a blog for this podcast on my own website, which is tylerjenke.com. That's TYLERJENKE/Trusty Chords Podcast, all one word. That's where you'll find entries on each episode each week and a list of all the artists, albums, and 5 songs chosen by my guests each week, along with the accompanying playlist too. You can also find a link to the Buy Me a Coffee platform, where you can throw me a few dollars to keep the podcast running if you feel so inclined. As usual, thanks to everyone who continues to listen, message, or just support this podcast in any way. I'm forever grateful to hear from you all each week. Lastly, I need to thank Tom Lanyon for spending time with me this week for the podcast and for being so open, honest, and personable the whole way along. I also need to express my gratitude to the wonderful Amy from Death Proof for helping organise this chat as well. But once again, thank you kindly for listening, and I hope to see you all again next week as I continue to celebrate music and those that create it.